coming through, Ben? That's good? Okay. I'll give you the 2 or 3 minute overview of what I've done, and then Billy had asked me to focus on music publishing, which is an area that I've spent a lot of time on over the years. I started off being a songwriter, flunked out of Denison, got actually halfway through my second semester sophomore year, trying to mostly be a songwriter. That didn't work out so well. So went back to school after spending a few years doing construction work and got business degrees, which in my family was a very odd thing. Got a master's degree out of Babson College in Boston, and then I got a CPA, which is an even odder thing in my family, and came to Nashville in 1980 to be a successful songwriter and possibly even an artist. During the day, I was developing with this company that got a job with. I was developing music clients, doing the business side, and was in the beginning element of what's called business management right now, which in 1980 there wasn't a lot of it, which is doing all the, taking responsibility for everything related to the business side of an artist's career. Collecting all the money, helping, the bigger the act, you're negotiating the hall fees, the merch deals, everything that goes on with that. In 1984, that became what's now O'Neil Hageman, which is a 48-person firm in Nashville that does nothing but entertainment, business management, and then I do in that business consulting, which is basically I help entrepreneurs with their business strategy, and the client that I've been with since the beginning on the artist business management side, that you might know, is Garth Brooks, and we've been in that camp from the very beginning. So that's, I guess, 22, 23 years. I was still writing songs, but by 1987 I realized that I was okay, but I was not great. And the light shines bright when you go into a music town and you just have to go to your strengths. So I ended up raising money through some friends I had met for a small publishing company. That publishing company, called Little Big Town Music, eventually became one of the top 3 independent companies in Nashville and sold to Sony ATV in 1998. They took my partner, who is the day-to-day operations person, made him the general manager, took all of our writers, and tried to get more of a kind of a street mentality and concept into this big Sony music publishing company. During that time period, 87 through 98, I managed a country artist named John Anderson, who's was and still is one of my favorite singers, and then a pop artist named Mark Germino, who had his success primarily in Australia and the UK. And everybody should be an artist manager before they start to criticize artist managers. Having done that for 2 or 3 years, it's 24 hours, there's no escape. It's very difficult. And I realized that my friends who had done that and were doing it well had some gifts that I didn't have, and so I segued out of that. Still keeping the publishing company, and I was also managing pop producers. At breakfast this morning, I was meeting with some friends here, and they knew some of the records that we had done. The main producer I've worked with is a gentleman named Barry Beckett, who's the keyboard player in the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. We did the last Waterboys record. We did Fergal Sharkey out of London. We did Leonard Skinner, Bob Seger. We did the first Fish album on Elektra Records, and that was a little more fun than the artist management. Then I started a record label with Warner Brothers called Warner Western that did Western music as opposed to country music, cowboy poetry, a true niche, and Native American music, and a little bit of Southwestern folk. And that's another hour describing what that business was about. Sold the record label, sold Little Big Town, closed down the artist management after about 3 years, closed down the producer management after about 10 years, and then started the current company called Big Yellow Dog Music about 13 years ago. And I knew that was going to be very hard to start something again from scratch. This time Sony, when they bought Little Big Town, was staked me to the finance to start that company. We went fully independent about 4 years ago from Sony, and then last Sunday we got actually we got 2 Grammys for Song of the Year, which is in the pop category, and also Country Song of the Year for the same song called Need You Now by Lady Antebellum that you guys may have heard. That publishing company, that's probably as mainstream as stuff as we do. We do stuff that's from Mindy Smith, who is a very eclectic songwriter, singer-songwriter, to country music in the mainstream, to anything that just appeals to us. We're based in Nashville, but we're basically in the talent business. We could be anywhere. If we, in the summers, if I could be based in Alaska and fishing for salmon and run a viable business, that's where I'd be. That's just unfortunately not a possibility. But, so let me just talk a little bit about music publishing. And I know you guys are just starting out. This is the introductory side of it. Mostly what you hear these days are the newest digital platform. Spotify is on the way. I can't even pronounce half the different things that I read about them, and I don't necessarily am conversant in all the elements. But basically, it's all about making music available to people on their terms, how they want it, and in some way that's satisfactory to both the digital distribution and the copyright owners. There's a lot of stuff that's happening, and the speed of change is simply just enormous. Our response to all that is simple. We're in the talent business. And if you have something that's unique and engaging and interesting, then that just jumps through all the distribution channels. I mean, by the time we would figure out how to make sure that whatever we were doing was get the best search result at Google, we would spend all that time focusing on something other than what we do, which is essentially work with the best talent that we can find, develop that talent, and then try to bring it into the market and look for champions and people to work with us. And there's a lot of, in the music publishing side, there's a lot of spaces at the table. We're not an artist manager. We're not a record label. We're not an agent. We do all those things when need be, but formally, if there's somebody else who can come in and we get it to a certain point, we'll fire ourselves and bring in somebody who's better than we are in that area. So there's a lot of collaborative elements, but the key, in our view, and there was a question asked in preparation about, what's your answer and how do you, if you've been successful, how do you continue that, is to keep our focus fully on the most unique talent. When in Nashville, as in LA and in other towns, when something happens, everybody's saying, well, I need something like that. And my experience is, well, that's not what you need. If you're a major company, if you're Warner Brothers and EMI has something going on, let's say Katy Perry, and they say, God, we don't have anything like that. They're going to go and try to manufacture something, get it into the market to work off of that. That's what the major companies do. The independent companies are the ones who are going to be working with Arcade Fire for 5-7 years. They're going to be behind unique things. If you watch the Grammys, Mumford & Sons did an amazing performance. A lot of people didn't know much. I knew a little. I certainly didn't know the live show, hadn't seen them. That was phenomenal. That people came away thinking these guys are real, and just took that one moment. But in an independent company, unless you're going to work for a big company where you really don't have that much strategic input, if you're looking to do something on your own or with a group of peers, you need to take something that you have a passion for and that's not following things, because otherwise the well-financed companies will simply just run over you. And by the time you come into the market, you're coming in with something that's different. And our publishing company, if you go on the website, bigyellowdogmusic.com, you'll see all sorts of stuff that's going on there. So that's the very short, condensed version.
These kids, they're, for the most part, freshmen in this program,
Okay.
but you can imagine the amount of negative comments they hear about the music industry. You can imagine the amount of negative stuff they read about the business, the future of the business as it stands. Can you speak a little bit about the idea that what it is you do and what, you know, specifically music publishing, how it functions as a core driver of the business?
You mean how to make money doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do it a variety of ways. In Nashville, we pitch songs to established artists. Martina McBride, who is one of the 5 singers on the Aretha Franklin tribute on the Grammys last week, she cut 1 or 2 of our songs in January from actually the same songwriter who wrote the Need You Now with Lady Antebellum.
Let me ask you to pause right there. So this is like, again, building the relationship between the practical and the theoretical, right? What happens, what good thing happens at the moment they get somebody to cut one of their songs? A song they own, right? So far it's not generating, it's not generating any income, right? So what begins to happen when somebody actually records the song? Well, you own the copyright to, not to the recording, but to the, you own the copyright on the song, so you own the songwriting and the publishing, right? What's great about somebody recording the song? What royalty might you begin to see immediately? Mechanicals, right? You should be brave and speak loudly. You know, you might be in line for mechanical royalty the minute that record is manufactured and produced, right? You might be in line for what other kind of royalty should that record get radio play? Pardon? Yeah, PRO money, right? ASCAP EMI, right? Very good. Now, another nice thing, I mean, no, again, you're realizing that the writer that Kerry's representing in that case isn't the star, but the writer is very much the center of the economic picture at that point. The benefit of the main revenue driven by this song is going to that writer. You have to understand that, right? So a big star records that song, the mechanicals go to the songwriter and publisher. When it gets played on the radio, performance royalties go to the songwriter and publisher, right? If it's synced to a Cadillac commercial, right?
Then you ask for a new Cadillac.
And yeah, at that point you can have a new Cadillac. Right? And you don't be, you're not the name, you're not the star in that case. Right? How many of those people do you think there are in the world? You know, how many, and why, and how wonderful it is that you're asked to come up with the most unique version of yourself. You're asked to be a freaking snowflake in that instance, right? One person different from every other person. You'd better be unique because you won't be heard. You're not being asked to knock off the next, the thing that just broke. That to me seems like, to people like you, people in your position, that might be interesting. Sorry.
No. That's on Need You Now. Right before the Grammys, it was on Glee. It's been synced for radio play, for we just saw one a few weeks ago, a radio station in the Netherlands, wanted to use it for one of their primary themes, driving people to that radio station and to their website. There's a whole behind-the-scenes world. But talking also about the theme in terms of our writer there not being the artist. Once I chuckled when I saw that picture of me that was a picture up there with Josh, who he had just re-signed to an extension of his writer deal with my partner in Big Yellow Dog. And by the way, everything that I've done that's been successful, I've always done with a collaborative partner, because I have some skills, but it's always pretty apparent to me that I don't have all the skills, and so I work well in a collaborative environment with people that have things to bring to the table that I don't. So my partner and the writer, we're cut off.
It's a very important point. The idea that we all have deficiencies, right? And you're well served to find somebody who does what you don't do real well, to do that really well. I did that in management as well when I found a business manager to compliment me in my management practice. It was really important to me that I find somebody who was really dialed in and really natural doing the things that I wasn't particularly natural.
And in my line of business, I'll know a lot of the artists, I'll know the vast majority of the writers, I'll know all the publishers, and I wear two hats, often as a consultant for other publishers and writers, and then also my own company. But you'll rarely see me out there, and that's by design. I mentioned Garth because I've been with him for so long, and there's so much stuff that you can Google it, and you'll probably find something, in connection. But in our business firm, O'Neil Hageman, there's not even a website. Our firm is so word of mouth that and because we protect people's business affairs and it's so private, is that it's just a dead zone. When something comes into that firm, it just dies, that information, because it's all private. And in a world where everything is tweeting, everything is self-promotion to this escalating degree, we've had success by doing exactly the opposite.
How interesting. That's
And
a great
so
point.
every client that comes to us because they have been told by somebody else, these are the guys you need to look after your business affairs because they negotiated this deal or they did X, Y, and Z. And so, the contrarian nature of designing businesses and ideas is one that if you just read what's happening, you'll always follow. Because everybody's has, that's what's out there. It relates to the vast majority of people, so that's the story. But you can also do something along the lines of a big yellow dog and do the anti-story. You do the opposite. If they're going big, you're going small, but you're still in the talent business. It can't be a mindless exercise. But and matter of fact, what I'll talk about tonight is my own experience is not only is that a good thing, that is what you need to do. If you do the other, it may seem like you're being safe and you're following what the Sonys and these people are doing, but you don't have $150 million to spend, and you can't do that. And but you can do things that they can't do because they make decisions by committee. There's a new person comes in every 2 years, and that person doesn't like electronic dance music, and they might have the best thing going on, but that person says, I don't want to do that. Too much trouble. We don't want to promote through the clubs and through these other things. Let's just go right at mainstream radio. And you don't have a lot of control. You may say, I know exactly what's going on in the dance clubs. I know exactly what's happening there. People are they're paying, there's 1,000 people at this show. I know this thing is going to work. And so, but you can follow that because you can see what's happening. You may not have that right if you work for Sony. So
you have the ability to be nimble, to pivot when you're working from your passion and you're keeping it close to you.
And there are opportunities. If you're out seeing shows, if you're listening to music, you're going to see what people are reacting to. And if you can be the person who's willing to outwork anybody else, within at the very least, a 5-mile radius, they expand it as the deal goes, you'll be challenged more. You got a shot, whatever age, whatever you're bringing. But there's, I guarantee you, in this town right now, there's some band that is starting to get people's attention. And that's where I say that's the talent side. That part will never change. Whether it's Spotify or something else, people are going to want to hear something that is just like outrageously interesting. So
we're going to have to let Kerry go shortly, but if any of you have a question that's burning right now, you go ahead and ask it, and then of course store up your questions for forum and hit them for forum. I know you're going to be curious about how somebody in your position might get started on the road to doing what he does, but and by all means ask the questions you have, but we don't have very much time in this instance. Mike, why don't you go first, and then Lionel.
yeah.
My question had to do with when you're in the industry, like you said, you started up a lot of your own companies, and that was on you, and then you started getting people under you. Because I've read a lot of articles on how if you get into someone like Sony or EMI, the more creative you are and more out of the box you are, the more they'll shut you down. Like you have to, I've read, just that there's kind of a regimen you have to go through. You have to agree with the higher ups, like you said, the committees make all the decisions. So, you know, if someone's around here doing local things and then bringing it over to them, it's kind of difficult that instead of like a big company, then a little company will just like listen to that. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. So how would you recommend for someone to, I mean, if they're just getting started, you know, like, are you just like, am I just going to be going to shows all around and trying to figure out who the best band is and like talk to them and stuff like that, or do I talk to other companies, or do I get involved with
To do what, like to start your own publishing company?
Yeah, right.
To begin as a publisher?
Right, yeah, like I realize if I'm going to start my own publishing company, I have to do a lot of the things on my own, but if I want to talk to another publishing company, whether it be bigger or smaller, which is the best to get your foot in the door, to get, you know, names known and like be able to just draw off other people and like have that sort of buzz in the office.
No black and white answer.
Yeah.
On the first part, in terms of dealing with EMI and Sony, I'll tell you what we're doing. This isn't, and maybe this will be of some help. 10 years ago, if we found a great artist, writer, we would just take that artist, writer, do a showcase and have them listen to some songs. Right now, we're going into the studio. We'll do like a week's worth of rehearsals, and we'll do that probably in April. The guy's name is Logan Mize, so if you hear him a year from now, you'll have been on the beginning of the process. And we'll go in and do at least 5 sides, if not the whole album, so that when we bring it to an EMI or Sony, we're not bringing it into an A&R committee, A&R being the creative terminology, the artist and repertoire. We're not bringing it in for them and say, oh, I like this, but we'd change this, we'd change that. If this is what if they have something that we think we've missed, we certainly are open to that. But what we want to avoid is coming in and then, through a course of the next year, you have 8 people all changing every month, deciding, oh, I like this, I like that, what do you think about this producer or that? We want to be at a place where they know the vision, they know the music, and if they don't get it, we move on. If they do get it, then they can do what the labels do best, which is when they know what the musical vision is, they can get behind it and follow it and execute it well. They do that well. It's just the creative part of it is such that it's better to go at it and say, hey, we're going to take the risk for us at more money up front, but long term, we get a much greater percentage of getting that career right. And then we're involved with that artist writer for a long time. For yourself, if you have a connection with a band and you want to pitch that band, because most likely you're not going to find individual writers who write for a variety of things, unless it's a producer writer. But you're going to want to go and have them do an album in some way, as cheaply as possible, and you can do it fairly cheaply. And then, you're going to try to catch lightning in a bottle and take that product and take it to whatever outlet that you're talking about. And that outlet could simply be you directly to the local fans. If they're basically, getting the live scene working around them, then your deal might be, hey, I can't help you here. I'm gonna work with you on this part, but if I can help you to work and get that to the next level, then you can cut me in here because that's what I'm helping to do. So
getting traction first, there's a lot to the idea that you can get some traction before anybody's going to be attracted to you at all. You need to build that sense of momentum yourself. Sorry,
yep.
Lana.
Yeah, as far as like creating like fan niches and like market reflections, like pretty much I just seen like fashion go from having the thick baggy clothes to like now we're like a nerd era. And pretty much where do you get the inspiration to find like new things when everything's really like recycled and it's opposite always comes?
Well, the whole element of trend analysis is for my own personal purposes, I've looked at that a long time, and you have things that are supposed to be ahead of the trend, you're supposed to things that are behind the trend, against the current trends, and yes, things do get recycled, always with a little bit of a flair. I mean, if you want to be in the physical record business, the most profitable, steady area is in the vinyl business. Because that's definitely a retro anti-trend. And so on the fashion side of it, the people who study fashion as a statement and saying, hey, if you think of fashion as the equivalent of the album cover, And I want somebody, as soon as they see how I look, to get an initial impression about what I'm doing. Then, you know, they're studying, you know, also, I forget this band, I just saw this on the internet, but they're all dressed up, you know, black and white, you know, a suit, tie, and it didn't fit the music at all, but that was the whole intent. You know, the music was very, you know, I don't know, grungy, kind of, you know, but it had elements of horns and not a lot of guitar, a lot of percussion, and this just kind of almost Blues Brothers kind of thing to it. But they're using the visual to kind of give you a counter statement to the music. So I mean, it's a, you know, there's a lot of interesting things. I don't have any ideas on how to do it, but
you know, one of the questions that I've been asked frequently in this class, and I'll ask at the, you know, I'll take the initiative away from them in this instance, is you're a young entrepreneur doing a publishing deal with a new artist. How are you meant to collect for them in that regard when you're just a youth? Well, if you sign a deal, there's a negotiation of rights with that artist, and let's say that you were able to bring whatever to the party, that they said, okay, we'll assign our publishing to you, you assign, or half our publishing, so let's say half our publishing, bear with me here, but that's basically a 75-25 split. You guys understand the co-pub deal, right?
Yeah. And you get those rights, let's say, for 2 years, and they vest if you're able to place that album on any number of labels, from a major label to a regional label that has some national reach. Certainly digital gives it national. And you're then saying, hey, you know, you're out there, they look at you and say, I don't know if there's anybody who's going to work harder. You know, he or she gets the music, and you know, you have to know what to ask for. This is why you're here, is to figure out when you do bump into that talent, you're going like, wow, that's good. You know how to ask for the right thing, which is not too much, and it has to be fair, because your initial dialogue with that artist is the basis of either a long-term relationship that they're going to trust you and that you are fair with them and you're not overreaching, and you may have more business skills, you're not exploiting that. And so it can continue, or you'll have asked for too much, even if they agree with it. You're the last person they're going to want to deal with once they figure it out, and then you're done.
Yeah, you took advantage at that point.
Yeah.
Sorry, you have a question?
Yeah, this is a kind of two-part question. So your company's strategy for acquiring talent is the artists come to you through recommendations and like interest peaks? Is that correct?
We do all of the above. We sign writer-artists. We have about 8 or 9 writers who, they all have some artist aspects, but they write for other artists that are you know, that make more money, if you will, in the commercial area. And we essentially, at this point, again, I've been doing this for a long time, it didn't start off this way, but we have the ability, even for developing writers, to pay those writers advances against future royalties, so they can actually devote all their time to writing. And then we try to create a culture where those writers can grow and develop, and they've got a moment to be able to do that, and it either works or it doesn't. So that's.
Anybody else have something?
Yeah, no, that actually answered.
Okay.
Good. Anybody else have a burning question? All right. Well, I'm going to cover a little bit of stuff with you guys in a minute. Thank you, Kerry, for being here.
Yeah, Kerry, thank you.